Well, our time together has almost come to an end. I wanted to bring my buddy Gabriel Kahane out to tell a story that he told me right after he got back from that train trip he mentioned earlier.
That was amazing. They let me out from my cage behind the piano. So as I said before, I took this trip right after the election to try to get out of my New York bubble, which is a bubble, and to try to have some encounters with folks that I might not have met otherwise. And on the second day of my trip, this is 2 days after the 2016 presidential election, I was standing on the platform to get on the Empire Builder. That's the train that goes from Chicago to the Pacific Northwest. And I'm standing there and I see these 6 guys dressed in plaid shirts, suspenders, dark denim, work boots, and their hair slicked back severely and kind of shaved several inches above the nape of the neck. They could have been hipsters from Portland or Brooklyn, but something was like a little askew. And I thought, well, this is it. I've gotten out of my bubble, and these are the guys I'm going to talk to, but what am I going to say to them? So I get on the train, I put my things down, and I walk into the observation car, and they're sitting there playing cards silently. And I kind of sit a table away from them, stealing glances at them, trying to think of a conversation starter, and I can't think of anything. And then I see this kid who I recognize as being Amish. He walks up to them and starts to try to engage them in conversation about the card game. And the suspender dudes are not having it. And the Amish kid is not taking social cues, and he just kind of barrels forward. He's like, oh, we play this game in our church, and nothing from the suspender guys, until finally the youngest of the 6 takes pity on the Amish kid, and he starts to explain the rules of the game, and they have a little chat, and I'm thinking, what can I say? Nothing. So I go back to my sleeper car, and I kind of scold myself in my journal, and thinking I have, which is a thing that I do. And then later that night, after dinner, I've had a couple glasses of wine, and I'm walking through the observation car, and those 6 guys are there, and now they have Lutheran hymnals in front of them. And emboldened by the wine, I say, so you guys gonna sing or what? Silence. And I realize that they probably think I'm mocking them, so I take a different tack, and I say, I'm a musician, do you think, could I sing with you? And they give me this kind of quizzical look, and then finally the young one, the same one who talked to the Amish kid, he says, you know these songs? I say, well, I don't know these songs, but I read music. He gives me a very skeptical look, and he says, you read notes? I say, yeah, I read notes. And there's a long silence, they look at each other, and then finally the eldest of the 6, who has this dark, handsome, Teutonic face, he lifts his head and he says, 247. And they all turn to him, 247. And the youngest of the 6 pushes his so it's equidistant between him and me. And we start to sing. We're somewhere in Wisconsin, it's getting dark. It's 2 days after the 2016 presidential election. And we sing this hymn, the hymn finishes, it's a little afterglow. The young one turns to me and he says, you want to sing another one? So we sing a second hymn. And after that hymn, I get up the courage and I say, do you mind if I ask what your faith is? And he turns to me and he says, well, we're Old Order German Baptist Brethren. I say, I'm not familiar with that. And he says, well, we do use tractors. Okay. How big is the church? He says, 19 families, 226 souls, give or take, in your community? No, that's everyone. And how far back does the church go? All the way back to Christ, we believe. And he says, do you have any songs of yours that you'd like to sing? And I say, well, I'd need a piano or guitar, but let's just keep singing. So we sing a few more of their hymns. And after the 4th or 5th one, he turns to me and he says, do you mind if I ask what your faith is? And I say, well, I'm Jewish, actually. And they fall silent. And not another word is spoken. And it gets awkward and uncomfortable. I'm thinking, I killed their savior, I feast on the blood of Christian babies, this is all bad. This is all very bad. And it's now like 10 at night and everyone else has left. And so finally I excuse myself. I say, thank you so much for letting me sing with you. This has been deeply moving. And they don't say anything. And I go back to my sleeper car and I'm like, what just happened? So the next day at lunch, we're sitting in the dining car, and Donald is the dining car attendant, and he has a fun meter on his vest. It's like a fuel gauge with an adjustable plastic arrow that tells you how much fun he's having. And at this particular moment, he's having an incredible amount of fun because he heard about the singing last night, and he starts casting the Old Order German Baptist brethren in a boy band. And he says, you're the strong but silent type, and you're the heartthrob, and I should know because I was in the music business because I produced records for Sony when I was in the army in Germany. And I'm like, what is going on? But we still don't talk to each other. And I'm still feeling terrible. And then later that night, I'm sitting in my sleeper car, and this Amtrak employee comes and he knocks on my door and he says, excuse me, are you Gabriel? And I say, yes. And he says, I'm so sorry to bother you. There are 6 young men in the observation car. They're about to sing, and they wanted to know if you would join them. And so I went out and I sang with them for another hour, and that is a thing that happened to me when I went out in the middle of the country after the 2016 presidential election.
Willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, blind Bartimus stood on the way. Willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, crying, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, blind Bartimus stood on the way. Willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, crying, oh Lord, have mercy on me. In my God's Bible, in the book of James, Christ was healing the crippled and the lame. Will he gave to the poor and the needy bread, healing the sick and raising the dead. And then when he came to Galilee, he passed by a man that could not see. Well, the man was blind, he was blind from birth, and they tell me that his name was blind Bartimus. So willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, blind Bartimus stood on the way. Willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, crying, oh Lord, have mercy on me. When Bartimus heard that the Lord was nigh, he fell on his knees and began to cry. Oh, the man of Galilee,
crying, oh great God, have mercy on me. Crying, oh Lord,
Mary's baby,
oh Lord,
son of David,
oh Lord,
bleeding lamb,
Lord, my troubles in
Bethlehem,
crying, oh Lord,
Mary's baby,
oh Lord,
son of David,
oh Lord,
a bleeding lamb,
Lord of my troubles in
Bethlehem. Oh, when my God, he stopped, he turned around and he saw blind Bartimus on the ground, and he touched his hands with the palm of his hand.
Blind Bartimus saw like a natural man, he cried, thank God,
Mary's baby,
thank God,
son of David,
thank God,
bleeding lamb,
of my troubles in the
Bethlehem,
crying, oh Lord,
Mary's baby,
oh Lord,
son of David,
oh Lord,
bleeding lamb,
my troubles in the
Bethlehem. Oh, willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, blind Bartimus stood on the way. Oh, willow, blind Bartimus stood on the way, crying, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Warren Tree, Gabriel Kahane, Aoife O'Donovan.